You're listening to the Nacho Kids podcast, where we discuss all things step family related. Real stories, real people, real help. Your hosts are the creators of the Nacho Kids Method and the Nacho Kids Academy Step Family Coaching Team, Lori and David Sims.
Today we have Tamara Arnold. Hey, Tamara, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So you are an attorney.
I am. For 20 plus years now.
Wow. Okay, for those of you that cannot see her, she does not look like she's old enough to be an attorney for 20 years.
Almost 25 now.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you've got a unique story as to how you became an attorney or what drove you to become an attorney. Will you share that with us?
I will. For me, it started pretty young. I was a precocious kid, and I just said I always wanted to be an attorney, and it stuck. So when I got into law school, I just stayed on the path. But I've done a number of things as an attorney. I've had maybe 6 or 7 different practice areas. And it really wasn't until I became a divorce mediator and consultant. I don't do litigation anymore, but it really wasn't until I became a divorce mediator and then an estate planning attorney that I realized how full circle I had come. And so for me, the story was in the estate planning side, I didn't realize that my life story actually is the reason that I'm here today until I went through it again. Because when my mother, I should start over. When I was 13, I was in a hiking accident, and my mother became a quadriplegic at that time, and she didn't have an estate plan in place. She didn't have a healthcare directive. Nobody knew what her wishes were. So when she was unconscious, the doctors gave my father a choice to either let her live or let her die. And he chose to let her live. And a year later, she didn't like that choice living as a quadriplegic. She felt like it wasn't her life. And so she chose to end her life. And when I became an estate planning attorney, it finally dawned on me, oh my gosh, I have been moving to this path my whole life. And so now I help people put those plans in place so their wishes are honored, so their voice is heard, so people don't have to go through what she went through. It's a pretty tragic story, but it took me 30 years to realize how full circle I had come.
Well, I'm so sorry about your mom, but I know she obviously was young when this happened.
Yeah.
You never know. So it's better to be prepared.
Yeah. She was 38 when she died.
Wow.
And it was far too soon, but we didn't know anything about estate planning back then. I had never heard what a healthcare directive was before until I got into this. And now it's kind of my mission to make sure that people have them.
Well, I have a question, and if it's too personal, you don't have to answer. You can just tell me. Was when she chose that she didn't want to continue to live like that, was it like she just stopped all care? Was that her choice, or was it like an assisted kind of death, or?
It was a little bit of both. So she was a quadriplegic. She didn't have agency over her own body. The one thing that she could decide to do was whether to eat or not. And so she starved herself for many, many days until she died. And at the time, California didn't have laws to assist. So it was pretty much some kind-hearted doctors looking the other way and not force-feeding her.
Wow.
Yeah.
God bless those doctors.
Bless those doctors, and realizing that people have the right to live and die on their own terms.
Yeah. And I can't imagine how hard that was for your dad to make that decision, then to feel like he made the wrong one.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no blame there. He didn't want his kids to lose their mother, of course, but he had to make the best choice he thought at the time. And now, it's hard to know. There are plenty of people that live with quadriplegia and they have a fulfilling life and they can still do it. But for her, it wasn't the right move.
Right. I know my mom passed away, 11 years ago, and she had some healthcare directives, but not fully. So I had to be the one that said, yes, pull the plug. And that is hard. Even if you've got everybody telling you she's not going to get better. You could look at her and tell she's not getting better. But still, right or wrong, you wake up the next morning, you're like, I killed my mom.
Yeah.
That's just how you feel. And it doesn't help because you've got family members that are upset because you
Hmm.
made that choice and they weren't ready for you to make that choice. So they're saying the same thing. So it's really
Yeah.
important. I know I went and had that done. So I don't want to be put on feeding tubes. I don't want any of that. And actually, a friend I was talking to this morning, her mom has all that in place, and her mom's in the hospital right now. And she said, I'm so thankful that she has that. So I don't have to be the one to make these decisions.
Right. It is a gift that you can give your family to know that you've got it covered, that no matter what happens, your wishes will be honored. So you don't put somebody in that position because it's a horrible position to be
It
in. It's a
is.
horrible position to say, I'm the one that has to make this call, whether my parent lives or dies. It's horrible.
Well, and then, with my mom, I remember the last week or so, I didn't want to ask her questions because I didn't know how coherent she was. She couldn't respond other than wiggling her foot or shaking her head a little bit. So I didn't want to ask important questions like, are you ready to go or anything like that?
Hmm.
Because what if she would have shook her head yes, but she didn't understand? There's just so much that goes through your mind with all that. And
Right.
it's like, you just pray that you're doing the right thing, making the best decision.
And you still think about it today, I
Oh,
imagine.
yes, all
Yeah.
the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it will
Do you
ever
know
go
in your
away.
heart you made the right call?
I think that if she would have stayed, in the hospital, she would not have had any type of life.
Hmm.
So, yeah, and I know she wouldn't have wanted to just be a vegetable, for lack of a
Yeah.
better word. I know that kinda sounds, harsh. So, but yeah, she, had gotten to where she just couldn't fight it anymore, and
Hmm.
she ended up with the flu, and it just kinda kicked her over the edge, and so, yeah, we have to do what we have to do.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like you said, you see people though that are quadriplegic, or what's that guy, Nick Vuji something another? He's got no arms, no legs, but he got his little chicken foot. He's a motivational speaker. That's
Of
amazing.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that just amazes me. I don't think I'm that kind of person though. I don't think I would fare well with that. So,
I don't think I would either. Yeah.
yeah.
Even though there's been so many scientific advancements that are great, there are people that can actually heal from certain types of quadriplegia now. It's amazing. It's
Yes,
amazing.
it
Yeah.
is. And I apologize if the word vegetable was a poor choice of words.
No, not at all. Not at
Okay.
all.
Because
I
I'm like,
think I think that's what we know it as when you're incapacitated to that degree. I mean, we have to make light of it in somehow, right? I think the words try to capture something that we're all struggling with, and it's not the
right,
words that we have to blame.
right. So you were an attorney and did litigation, and then you were like, "Wait a minute, this isn't fulfilling to me. This
Yeah.
isn't what makes my heart happy."
For the first part of my career, I worked in what we call big law, which is me representing Fortune 500 clients in class action cases. So I would spend years representing companies, which was great. They need representation too. But now I get to represent families. Now I get to walk people through difficult choices and the hardest moments of their lives. And I think because I grew up the way that I did, knowing from a young age how hard those moments can be, I have a certain level of capacity to walk people through those moments for themselves and to kind of
Right,
face those choices in advance. So when the time comes, they feel like they have everything ready to go, they have everything in place, they have peace of mind.
right. Now, did your dad remarry?
He did. He did.
Okay.
And I have a half brother who's about half my age. He got remarried a little bit later, so he had a kid when he was 50. They didn't have to deal with a blended family. He started over, but yeah, I had to figure out how to. I was the youngest kid in my family, so having a baby in the family was very new for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, how old were you when you got remarried?
I was a freshman in college,
Oh,
so I
so you weren't even
was
home, so you
18.
didn't have to deal with stepmom trying to tell you what to do and all that stuff.
Well, I did a little bit. Oddly enough, the woman that my father married was my mother's night nurse. She actually lived with us for a while and she took care of my mother. And I'm sure that was difficult for her to step into those shoes. So she she was with us when my mom passed. She was a good friend of mine. She's a bit younger than my father, so she kind of stepped into that maternal role for me when my mother was in the wheelchair and couldn't care for me. So she and I were very close. And then as a senior in high school, I realized that they were dating. They kind of sat me down one day and said that they were dating. A few years had passed. Thankfully, it was very respectful. And then they got married when I was a freshman in college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're still married today. Yeah.
Good. That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah. I bet that was kind of weird though, your dad marrying the night nurse.
It was weird. It
Yeah.
was definitely weird, especially since we were friends. So I think I probably was not my best self for a good couple of years there as I was getting used to that news, but we're fine now.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
So what do you do now?
So now I do two things. I help people through divorce, whether that's working as a consultant, kind of behind the scenes, helping them manage the emotional aspects of divorce. I'm also a divorce mediator where I work for both couples to help them separate. And then the other part of my practice is the life and legacy planning. So I am part of the personal family lawyer system, which is a group of lawyers across the country that have all decided to do estate planning a little bit different. So we're very heart-centered. We really get in there. We offer services that a lot of estate planning firms don't offer. A lot of estate planning firms just kind of put documents together and people don't
Right.
understand them. And then they just sit on a shelf and they don't update them. And then when the time comes, those documents fail because
Right.
they've never been looked at. So we have collectively decided to do things a little bit differently. And we, from start to finish, it's a whole different experience. Our goal really is to be the personal family lawyer that's by the sides of people that hire us through all of life's changes, because life changes, the law changes, your assets change. And so an estate plan needs to live with your life. It needs to reflect your life. And as things change, we want to make sure that we're keeping everybody's plans updated, because we know, the chances are pretty good that your marriage may not last. And then the chances are good that you're going to get married again and sometimes again. And so your estate plan needs to change through all of life's twists and turns.
Yes, I know. We encountered a lot with that with my mom. She had she had a will, but she also had pieces of paper. If this, then this. If this, then this. Just and it's like, what do you follow? Because some of it was like
Right.
what she wanted to do with life insurance. And so I tried to honor that as best I could, figuring out, all these little slips of paper. But also, she set up a trust for my niece and my nephew. And come to find out, the trust was not set up really the way it should have been.
In what
So
way?
the way it was written, it was this money is for my niece and my nephew.
Mm-hmm.
So my niece could have took every penny out of that trust, and my nephew got none. So when I went to talk to the guy to set it up, he said, you can split this and do half and half because there's nothing saying you can't.
Right.
He said, but that way it keeps both children kind of on an equal footing rather than one having, the older one going through and blowing through the money faster. And
Right.
I'm so glad that they did that because my niece did. She went through it like crazy. And actually, that's another thing. I don't know if you can have somebody that's not family over the trust because I was over it and stuff still had to go through the like legal part of it.
Yes.
But I had to approve stuff and she drove me insane.
So you were the trustee?
Yes. And I mean, she would say, well, I need you to pay my phone bill. It's $1,800. I'm like, I am not paying an $1,800 phone bill. Why do you have an $1,800 phone bill? So it caused a lot of problems between my niece and I.
I'll bet.
And,
Yeah.
like I said, I would have to provide receipts to the accountant or whatever his name is that handled that. But it wasn't black and white what my mom wanted with that money.
Yeah.
Like, do you really want me to bail her out when she makes stupid decisions? Or do you want me to make her keep this money until she's ready to buy a house or she needs a car, things like that. And I think it's very important to make sure you understand what they want with that trust when they set it up.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably a function of your mother probably not having an attorney that asked her all of the questions to know
Right.
how the trust was going to work in practicality on the other end. So of course we can set up for anybody's wishes. I think most people don't realize that if you just have a will and no trust and you die, your kids could get everything outright. They're allowed to inherit everything outright when they turn 18. No 18-year-old is going to make wise choices with that money.
Right.
So a trust gives you some accountability. It holds on to the money, and you can set up whatever parameters you want. They get this much at this age and this much at that age. Or you can give them outright. You can make them their own trustee. There's so many options. But the point is, you have to have an attorney that walks you through all of those questions from the beginning, because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so when I sit down with clients, we ask all of those questions in our planning session. We take 2 hours to ask all of the questions that I need to ask, so they know exactly how the trust is going to work. They know, well, I've got one kid who's responsible and one kid who's not that responsible. And so for now, I think this kid can handle the money this way, but this kid needs a little bit more asset protection because I don't know what's going to happen with this kid. And you can change it as you go along, but the family dynamics really should be dictating how the trust works, not the other way around.
Right.
And so for your niece, for example, you had the say-so of what was appropriate and what wasn't. And there should be guidelines in there in the trust that your mother would have said, okay, this is how. Do I want liberal guidelines? Do I want conservative guidelines? What if she doesn't go to college? What if she does go to college?
Right.
Can she spend the money on this? Can she spend the money on that? All of that can be added to the trust. And as you know, when you have blended families, it gets infinitely more complicated because now you have potentially 2 people coming together with 2 sets of kids and 2 sets of assets. How do you make that fair? How do you make that equal? How do you make it right for both sets of kids where it doesn't cause conflict on the other side?
David and I have talked about that recently. I guess now that our kids are older and we're older, we're like, we probably need to figure this out. I'm surprised we haven't by now, but it's one of those things that is hard to wrap your brain around. So like the house that my son and I moved into, Jackson had with his kids and his ex, and it's on family land.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Jackson, sorry, David. David's over here correcting me. Yeah, so it's his family's land. Well, technically, should any of that go to my son?
Right.
It's what happens if I die first? What happens if David dies first? If David dies first and I get everything, is there a way that I could be required to leave this house to his kids? Is there stipulations that you can put in there for stuff like that?
100%. Absolutely, 100%. Now, I'm an attorney in California, so I'm only licensed in California, but all states have trusts that they can set up. Trusts are federally recognized. So a trust is basically a relationship, and you decide who the parties are, you decide what the protections are, you decide all of that in advance. So absolutely, you can, if your husband should die first, you can stay on that land and you can live there as long as you need to live there, but the land would ultimately pass to the next generation in the way that he dictates, in a way that keeps the land safe and in the family and protected, but gives you protection that you're not going to be kicked out. So absolutely, all of those decisions can be made ahead of time. Now, if you don't build the trust, then it's too late. Then the fighting happens. Then, we can't predict what's going to happen. It's going to all get sorted out by a judge who doesn't know your family in probate court.
Right.
But if you create a trust, then you two get to have those conversations. Well, what do we want? What's fair? What's not fair? What if you die first? What if I die first? Who's going to take care of each other's kids? Because of course you're going to have the conversation. Everybody has a conversation that says, if I go, yes, I'm going to take care of your kids. If the other parent isn't in the picture, and even if they are, of course you're going to have that conversation because you care. But then things happen, right? And if you don't have the legal documents, then all of a sudden, well, the money that was reserved for them automatically gets funneled to you. And then it automatically gets funneled to your heirs. And so they could be left out of that process.
Right.
So
if little Johnny makes you mad, then you ain't getting nothing, little Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you can change it and you can disinherit somebody, but sometimes it's just the automatic laws that are going to get you. And so you need to know what the state's plan is for you. and what would happen by the laws of inheritance, heirs at law. The state has a plan for you. If you don't have a will and you don't have a trust, the state has one for you, and you're going to get funneled into that plan. And if you don't like that plan, then you need to make changes through legal documents to say, nope, I don't want the default. This is what I want. And so all of those options are on the table when you have the right attorney walking you through the right questions.
And probate is that plan, right? Isn't that
probate is that plan?
Right.
Yeah. Probate is where you have a certain level of assets. In California, for example, if you have a house that's worth over $750,000, or you have assets that are worth over a little bit less than $200,000, then automatically, even if you have a will, but if you don't have a trust, you just bought yourself a ticket to probate court. It's 12 to 18 months. Your family's going to fight every step of the way. A judge is going to tell you what happens. And if you have minor kids, by the way, a judge will also says who gets to raise those children. Right. So the judge makes all the decisions for you, trying to follow the law of your state. And it's only through legal documents that you get to make those decisions yourself.
I know we had to do probate with my mom, even though she had a will and there was a trust. So yeah, it's just kind of, I guess, a checks and balances kind of thing here.
Right. And that's the piece about trust. Trusts only work if they're funded properly. So if all the assets are inside the trust, then you can skip probate. But if you have an attorney set up a trust for you, and then they're like, "There you go, don't forget to fund," and you're on your way, and you forget to put the house in the trust, and you forget to put the accounts in the trust. Well, then you have a very expensive piece of paper that's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Right. Now I know with David and I had a will. Okay, let me back up. So I had full custody of my son, and his dad had visitation. And when I filled out my will, I asked the attorney, I said, can I suggest who gets my son if, I die before he's 18? And he said, absolutely. He said, that person will have to fight for your son, though. It's not a gimme. It's not, oh, she said this, because dad's going to be like, no, he's my son. And he said, but a lot of judges look at the past and, kind of look at the history and go, mom really wanted this and there's got to be a reason. So right. he said, yes, it's possible. So you need to put in there who you want. Right. And I'd never thought about that. I just automatically assumed that he would go to his dad. And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's put down 18 people. I'm kidding. But that was good to know that I could put somebody else that I thought would be better for my child to be with.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's called guardianship. And you can name guardians in your will or usually in a separate legal document as well. And I just had this conversation with my ex-husband about guardianship too, because yes, the default would be the other parent. So if you're in a blended family, he's remarried, I'm remarried, we've got 2 kids together. So we had a conversation to say, okay, what do we do here? Because if I go first, then they go with him. Mm-hmm. And if he goes first, then probably they go with me, and we're both fine with that. But then what about the step-parent? What about the step-parent who has this relationship that's been building for these kids? And so we came up with a plan that our guardianship will say, they go with the other parent if they go first. And then if that second parent dies, then they get to stay with the step-parent that they're with. But the other step-parent also has the right to continue the relationship and to continue the visitation that they've built. Because my kids now have 4 parental figures in their life that they're very close with. Mm-hmm. And so if one of us should pass, I don't want my new husband or his new wife to be completely cut out of their lives. That's not good for them. Right. So these are the conversations that you can have. And a judge, for the most part, the judge always has jurisdiction over the kids to make sure that the best interests of the child are represented. But if you have this guardianship form and the judge says, okay, these parents thought about it, I'm going to go with what the parents decided, because who am I as a judge to undo their wishes? So unless there's a pretty good reason, if you've stated what your preferences are, for the most part, the judge will try to honor those preferences unless there's a very good reason not to. Right.
I know there's been several step parents that are like, oh, if something happens to my husband, I'll still, take the kid. And I'm like, it's not that simple. The ex has to agree to that. You don't automatically assume their visitation. And it has to be in writing. And I love what you said about you don't want to yank the kids out of your partner's life. Like Jackson, he only remembers living with David. He doesn't remember the years that we had before we moved in and got married. So we always joke that if I died, nobody would tell his dad and he would just stay with David. Like, don't put it in the paper, send an email every once in a while just to bug your dad and act like I'm still alive. But
right.
Just don't tell him.
And that sounds like a plan, but all jokes aside, legally, it's probably not going to pan out that way.
Yeah, he'd find out somehow.
He'd find out somehow. I don't know how long you could keep the charade up.
Yeah. Now, do you work with a lot of step families doing estate planning?
I do. And I think it's because I understand it. I understand it because I've lived through it. So I try to promote myself as somebody who can have those compassionate conversations with blended families, because it's a little tricky when I'm planning an estate for a couple. Both of them are my client, right? And one person might be coming into this new marriage with more assets than the other. So it can be a little tricky having that conversation in front of the new wife. Okay, you've got some adult children. How would you like your assets to pass to your adult children? Don't worry, wife, we're going to take care of you too. But let's have this, it can be a little bit tricky to have that conversation, but I would represent both of them. And so walking them through that conversation is uncomfortable, but it's important. It has to be done.
Yeah, because you're looking at the new wife and she's like, well, I've got a kid that's been in his life for 15 years. Shouldn't he get some of these assets too that his kids are getting, but maybe not as much? Like, okay, we do 75% here, we do 25% there. I mean, it's not easy.
It's not easy. The law does help a little bit. So I don't know if your state is a community property state. I should have checked before. But in California, we've got community properties. So it's pretty much 50-50. So what you can do is when one spouse dies, the community is already kind of considered separate. You look at what the assets were for everybody, and then this would be husband's assets, this would be wife's assets, and we can direct both of those assets to whoever we need to. But we can also take care of the new wife, for lack of a better term, the second wife. We can take care of the second wife for life, but we can make sure that they go back to the kids. So we have all of those options. There's separate types of trusts. Some people might have heard of a Q-tip trust. There's different types of trusts and elections that you can make, which give you some tax advantages, but which also take care of the relatives and the family in the way that you want to take care of. So the law supports this flexibility, but you need to know how to set it up. You need to know what questions to ask, so you make sure that the plan that's in place, everybody is aware of, and there's no fighting.
Right.
I had a friend who, her mother died with a will, and it had to be probated, and she was a trustee, and there were some step siblings, and they were fighting over it for 18 months. And the step siblings, they still don't talk to each other. So 18 months later, her mother had good intentions by creating a will, but there was so much ambiguity in the will that everybody was fighting. And now the step siblings are completely estranged. And we hear this story again and again and again, because when somebody dies, it kind of becomes about the money, and it becomes about
I was going to say greed. Yeah.
And people aren't their best selves when they're grieving. And then when somebody has to be appointed the trustee or the executor, somebody's got to take the lead on this. Everybody else has a better idea of how things should be done. And that's when the fights start. Right. So I try to get in front of that with my clients. I have what I call a family legacy meeting with them, where once everything is signed and all the choices are made, we sit down together and they can invite their adult kids, they can invite everybody, and I can explain with their permission how the trust works. This is what's going to happen. This is who's going to be in charge. These are the decisions. And so
that way they can start fighting then, right? Instead of waiting until somebody
start fighting then, right? And since I'm a mediator, I know how to, mediate these arguments.
There you go.
So we get all the fighting done ahead of time, so it's not happening when your family needs to come together in their grief.
Yeah, I know when my aunt died, I don't know that she even had many things of value, but my cousins, they ended up not talking. And it's like,
what were they fighting over? Some tchotchkes or some jewelry?
Yeah. probably
Yeah.
a total of $3,000 worth of stuff. Like, really?
Yeah.
That, you know,
And I
but
don't know what that is. I don't know if it's the grief talking through the behavior. I'm
Mhm.
not sure, but it almost doesn't matter what the assets are. Sure, if you got more money, there's more to fight about, but
Right.
it almost doesn't matter. People can be estranged over, some, what's the word from When Harry Met Sally, some wagon wheel coffee table, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That can cause families to be estranged. And it doesn't matter what it is. When my grandmother died, she left me the one piece of jewelry she had, which was a diamond necklace that her husband gave her. And the
Mhm.
only reason she left it to me is because I would play with it. When I would sit on her lap, I would play with it. And she knew I liked it. So she left it to me. And of course, all of my other female cousins didn't love it, and I had no idea she was going to leave it to me. And that's just a simple story, a very
Right.
simple story. But those things, they hurt. They hurt for a
Right.
while because you don't have the person to ask why. Why did you do this? What happened? Didn't you love me? Didn't you want to give it
Right.
to me? They're not there anymore.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what the assets are if you don't have the plan in place, and if your family doesn't know what the plan is, then
Mhm.
there's plenty to fight about.
We joke with David's parents, if they get something new, we call dibs.
You
We're like, dibs.
put
I
that
like that.
Post-it on it right there.
Yeah. Go ahead and label it right then. Be done with it.
Yeah.
But it's grief it puts people in a different light. And like you said, that necklace meant something to you, but it obviously meant something between you and her that's why she left it to you. But
Yeah.
your cousins are like, no, you should have cut it up in 5 pieces and split it between everybody.
Right. Because it was the
Yeah.
only thing to her name when she died. Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, we all have better ideas of what should be done. It's the shoulds that kill families.
Yeah. I've actually got
Yeah.
some relatives that I know when they pass away, their kids are going to be floored
Why?
because the will is completely opposite of what they think it would be.
Ooh.
Yeah. And they're like, don't tell anybody. I'm like, I'm not, but I'm going to sit there with the popcorn and watch for sure because this is getting ready to get bad. And I'm like, but why
I
would you
guess I
tell
guess
them?
some people feel like it's their final wish is, this is what I'm going to do. Nobody's going to tell me what to do with my money, right?
Right.
And they'll find out when they find out.
Yeah.
That's definitely one way you can go.
Yeah.
But I think on the back end, that's just buying your family either a ticket to court or a ticket to my office where they scream about it.
Right.
But I personally think, why hide it? Just let
Right.
everybody know. Say, you know what? I talked about this with an attorney. He asked me all the questions. He or she asked me all the questions. I made my own decisions. This is what I decided. If you have a problem with it, let's talk now.
Yeah. It's my money, by God. Leave me alone. Yeah.
Right, right. And if you don't like it, well, then you can get on the phone with my attorney and she can explain it to you.
Right.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, David and I have talked about this recently too. When we were growing up, it was the parents left things to the kids. Now we're seeing that parents are leaving things to the grandkids and skipping the kids completely. Are you seeing more of that?
I see some of that more for high net worth people. I feel like they're skipping the kids. There's some, I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. I think maybe it's the generation wanting to take care of the most vulnerable generation. Their kids are adults. They've made their way in the
Right.
world. So I don't need to help them. Let's just give it to the kids. I'm not sure where that's coming from. But yeah, we do see it. I don't counsel my clients one way or another. It's their choice. I just try to make them aware of the consequences and make sure that they understand that if we divide it this way, you are for sure skipping your own children. You're not giving them a choice in how they want to handle it. Because let's say you are a high net worth person and you're leaving your grandchild $1 million and your parents don't have any say into how that money should be spent. It's hard to know what choices people are going to make. So
Right.
yeah, for me, it's not what I would It's not what I would recommend. It's not the first thing that I bring
Right.
up as an option. I do think, but it depends on the age, it depends on the family,
Yeah.
and it depends on those dynamics. Everybody gets to make their own choices. I just try to make them aware of, okay, you can make this choice, but here's what might happen. What happens if these two fight? What happens if this happens? Are you comfortable with all of those consequences? If so, let's do it. If not, let's come up with a different plan.
So could a child, and I know you're talking California, not South Carolina, and that things are different everywhere. But say my mom and dad, they died, order is irrelevant, but they left things to my niece and nephew, the grandkid. Could I contest that? Do you have legal right to contest it? Because wait a minute, they completely left us kids out of everything.
I mean, you can file a lawsuit for anything. Will it be successful? Probably not. If the will and the trust were valid. Now, the wrinkle is anybody who's a minor cannot inherit. So if you leave something to children's, they are not old enough to accept it. So there would have to be some kind of conservator or guardian to handle those assets until they're 18. Same thing
Right.
with life insurance, same thing with retirement accounts. If you name your minor child on those beneficiaries, again, you're buying them a trip to court because they cannot take them legally when they're under 18.
Yes.
So for all intents and purposes, somebody else will be in charge of that money. But then when they turn 18, it's all theirs and they can spend it the way they want. And when it's not in trust and when it's not protected, it's gone. It's gone.
Right. So let's jump to the mediation type discussions.
Sure.
Do people come to you on their own, or are you like a court-ordered mediator?
They come to me on their own. I am on a court panel as well, but for the most part, the people that come to me are the ones that are trying to divorce amicably. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily get along. They don't have to be friends. They don't have to be conscious uncouplers, is the parlance of our times. But it means that they're trying not to start World War III. They're trying to do it in a way that the money doesn't all go to the attorneys, that they can negotiate. So what I'm doing is I'm basically the facilitator of their business negotiation to end their marriage partnership.
Right.
And that's what we try to consider it, because a marriage is a partnership. You have
Right.
legal rights. One is a fiduciary to the other. You can't lie to each other. You can't spend each other's assets. You are partners. And so we are trying to unwind that partnership through a negotiation. And then I help them create a settlement agreement that then gets filed with the court, and the judge approves that settlement agreement.
Right.
So that's the goal, is to help them negotiate, not in a way that's fair, because no divorce is ever fair. Is there
Right.
anybody that's going to walk away from a marriage and say, well, that was fair, that was great? We don't ever get there. But I do know that if both sides walk away feeling like it's just a little bit unfair to them, but they can live with it, then we have the right result.
Right.
So, yeah. So
Well, if you go to court, it's definitely not going to be fair.
it's definitely not going to be fair, because if you go to court, you've got two attorneys that are fighting. All that cost starts to escalate. They've got to file motions back and forth. And then you have a judge that doesn't know you, that, is meeting with you on your case for maybe 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And then they have to decide what's quote unquote fair. So in my opinion, the judge and the attorneys are never going to do it better than those two people can. They're never going to have a more appropriate settlement than two people in the room, or these days on Zoom, saying, okay, I can live with this. You can take this. I can take this. I'm fine with that. This is my deal breaker. This is my deal breaker. How do we get there in a way that both of us can live with it? So that's the goal. It's not to win, because there is no winning in divorce.
Right.
There is no winning in divorce. There is restructuring. So how do we restructure this in a way that both parties can live with, where the children are taken care of, we put them first every time, and where the parents can walk away and have what I like to call family 2.0, where if you can get through it without being vindictive, without seeking revenge, without fighting just for the sake of fighting, if you can get to that other side, then you have the possibility of having the situation where it's a supportive co-parenting relationship,
Right.
where you're not fighting with the ex-spouse or the new spouse. The new spouse is no longer a threat to you, because you've you've negotiated your peace. You've negotiated your peace of mind. You've negotiated the best that you can get based on your circumstances. And there's no more resentment. It just
Right.
becomes, this is my new life, and this is how I'm going to play it. So the
Right.
fighting to me is the enemy. We try to keep all of that fighting away from the mediation room, which is why I always recommend people work with coaches, because it's the coach that you can, call up and say, my ex-husband did this, this, and this, and this, and this, and you can drop as many F-bombs as you want.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you communicate with your ex, it's all business. I need you
Right.
to pick up Johnny because I can't do it.
Right. Yeah.
Lucy's sick. You need to get Johnny. You got this? Yes, I've got it. So it's that kind of communication. And I love your Nacho Kids philosophy, where we really want to take the pressure off. We really want to almost disengage, because it's in that detachment where you actually get your sanity back. When you can look at it and say, okay, this is my responsibility. This is not my responsibility. And I don't need to buy into this. I can do it this way.
Do you have a lot of step parents that come in and you're like, oh my gosh, they're off the chain. They're way too involved. They're acting like they're the parent. I'm sure you've had situations like that.
I have, but for the most part, I see people when they're getting divorced. I don't always see them several years later. Mm-hmm. I mean, I live in a small town, so sometimes I see them and I'll check in and ask how the new situation is going. But I usually see them and get them through their divorce, and then they go off and live their better next chapter. In my mind, they're all going off to live their better next chapter.
Exactly.
And hopefully I don't see them again for divorce number 2 or divorce number 3.
Do you do anything with like custody type things? So say David wanted to change custody to where he had his kids more. Do you do mediation on those types of situations too?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in any divorce, you need to do asset division, you need to talk about support, and you need to talk about the custody and the parenting plan. So negotiating that parenting plan is usually where I start, because most people actually, in my experience, most people actually tend to agree on what's best for the kids. Like, they've been parents for these kids for in some situations a while. Sometimes the kids are new, and when the kids are younger, it's that custody negotiation is a little bit more complicated, because with kids 3 and under, it's difficult to have 2 homes.
Right.
But when the kids are a little bit older, for the most part, the parents, they've already agreed on the screen time. They've already agreed on, which family gets which holiday. They've already agreed on sort of the parenting philosophy that they want to raise their kids with. So for the most part, we start with the custody and the parenting plan, because it's where I can get some early agreements.
Right.
And it's when we get into the finances that things get complicated.
Right.
So,
you want those wins to kind of motivate them.
Exactly. So I usually start there with the parenting plan, and we try to get as much detail as possible and to anticipate. And again, the parenting plan is something that needs to be revisited, because the custody schedule for a 2-year-old that needs more frequent time with mom and dad is very different than the custody schedule for a high schooler, which, 1 week on, 1 week off, it's fine. They're just walking into the bedroom and shutting their door anyway. Any parent can be there for that, right? So when the kids get older, you kind of downshift into more of a supportive role. But when the kids are younger, you're on duty all the time. So it's a different negotiation. And I do see families come back to me to say, okay, we need to renegotiate this because things are shifting in our family. And we have more support now with the blended family situation, or one parent is working now and one parent is working less.
Right.
I never would have guessed that my ex would become the primary parent. But honestly,
really,
when I took some time off my career to raise my young kids. And then when I got divorced, I went right back to work, and I opened my practice since I got divorced. So I'm working a lot more than I did when they were younger. And my ex is a little bit more financially secure. And so he had more time. And I never would have guessed that he would be the 60% parent and I'm the 40% parent. And I love it. I love it because I get to serve my community.
Yeah.
And I struggled a little bit with being a parent when my kids were young. I did. And so for me, it gives me the breaks that I need to refill my cup.
Self-care.
I have, yeah, yeah. So I never would have guessed that he would step up and be the primary parent. But now I'm asking him questions about the school schedule. Like, does our son have a game today? What time is it? Now I'm asking him because he's got it. So I think when people are getting divorced, they're so ingrained in the conflict, they don't leave the option that things are going to shift in ways that they can't expect, and it might actually be better. Maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised. And the way that my ex-husband has stepped up, I'm in awe. He's got it. He's got it. And
wow.
And so I can trust him. So I know he's got it, which makes me less resentful. And when there is an error and there is a miscommunication, which happens all the time, there's no blame, there's no resentment. We're just trying to do right by our kids. We always remember that we're on their team. They're not fitting into our lives. We have to make this easy for them. And so we stay on their team, and we're both on the same team, theirs. And so we keep that priority, and we haven't had a spat in a while.
Wow.
I should knock on wood.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's impressive because, we deal with people that are struggling more than people that aren't. And I know 90% of the people that we work with, if they message their ex, like, does little Johnny have a game tonight? The response would not be, yes, it's at 6:00. It would be, you're an adult, check the site, check your email, check whatever. Like, I'm not helping you do anything. Right. Or as my ex would say, I wouldn't pee on you if you were on fire.
And I think that's so unfortunate. And I get it. If you've been betrayed in the marriage, I get it. It was never easy to swallow my tongue. But I realized pretty quickly on, as I started going back to work, that I needed help, that I needed the support. And so my philosophy is give to get. So if I was a little bit more lenient in the schedule, if I didn't hold him, if I didn't complain and say, you dropped Johnny off 10 minutes late, what are we going to do about that? If I just let it slide when I could, and if I said yes when I could, then he would say yes when he could, and that he would let it slide when I made a mistake. And so now that's how you build trust again. You don't necessarily need to be friends with this person. We are not friends. We don't socialize. We are friendly, but we are not friends. But we are respectful co-parents, because it's hard. It's really hard. And so now we've built that trust that when things get hard and when I've made a mistake, I can say, I missed it. Can you handle this? And he's like, yeah, I've got it. And when he needs it, I will do it.
And so that makes y'all's life and your kids' lives so much easier.
Right. It makes it easier for me. Do I want to be doing some of these things all the time? No, but I know that it makes it easier for me to be supportive. Right. So it's a selfish thing, really.
Yeah, but when you get an email from your ex, you don't want to throw up or scream. It's just an email from your ex. It's like a business.
Right. And now, even it's been 5 years for me since I've got divorced, so I'm on the other side, but I also find myself saying thank you. I also find myself giving a compliment once in a while, like, you nailed that, way to go. Because who doesn't need it? As parents, we think, there's the parental guilt all the time. Are we doing it right? Are we being the best parents we can be? It's hard. It's really hard. So I try to be a supportive co-parent whenever I can. And the kids see it. And just recently, my son was having an issue at school. We stayed outside getting eaten up by the mosquitoes, and we just let my son talk. And the two of us were having a conversation with my son to help him work through this school thing. And my ex-husband got to talk, I got to talk, my son got to talk. We were just there for him. And in the end, my son decided his own course of action, and both the parents were like, okay, we're good. Yeah. And he left and I left, and my son went home with his dad, and it was pleasant. It was pleasant. Right. And I think my son felt that support most of all. And I realize not every parent can get there, but to me, that's the pie in the sky. When my son can come to the both of us and know that we've got him, and it's not going to be drama. Right. And he can have a conversation with something that he's feeling frustrated by and that he's struggling with, and he can still get both of his parents in a room or outside or at the coffee table or on Zoom or wherever it needs to be, and he still has both his parents supporting him,
Right.
then that's the pie in the sky.
Right. I know, we see it a lot where the kids have, like, the 2-2-3-3 schedule or whatever, and that's so tiring on the kids. Now, I get it when they're
Yeah.
smaller because they don't wanna be away from moms for so long, and the mom doesn't wanna be away or dad doesn't wanna be away for so long, but at some point, it's what's best for these kids, and if your
Hmm.
kid is coming to you and saying, "I'm tired of bouncing back and forth. Let's do week on, week off."
Yeah.
And if your ex goes, "I'd love to do week on, week off," and you're like, "No, I don't wanna do it," just despite your ex, you're hurting your kid.
Right. I agree. Yeah. And my kids came to me and they were like, "I'm tired of carrying two backpacks at school. I'm tired of forgetting, where my things are and not having the thing that I need and having it be a hassle to go back and forth." And so you got to follow your kids.
Yeah,
And if they feel safe, then they will feel safe expressing to you what it is that they need. So you can
right,
be that parent for them. But if they don't feel that safety, they will never tell you where they're struggling.
right.
Yeah.
Now, how far away do you live from your ex?
I'm in a rural community, so I live more in town and he's about 18 minutes away.
Okay,
So my
that's not
kid,
bad.
it's not too bad. No. So my kids spend and they get to grow up on a ranch and they get to, ride their motorcycles at dad's, and at my house they're a little bit closer to friends and school. So there's definitely a disparity there between what they get to do with dad and what they get to do with
Mhm.
mom. And sometimes I feel that guilt a little bit if I can't match some of the extravagances that they get at their dad's house. That's hard.
Yeah,
That's really hard. But I do know that the kids have never made me feel that way. Even if their rooms are smaller, even if we don't take vacations as much, they're pretty good about saying, "Well, we like having two houses and we like doing this and we like doing this with mom and this with dad." And so they've never made me feel that way, but it is hard when you're navigating kind of
yeah,
two
because 'cause you're
different
like,
types
"Oh,
of
look,
households.
I got you this nice game for your PlayStation," and then the ex is like, "Oh, I bought you a whole entertainment center." You're like,
Right.
"Great."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when
Yeah.
we have to look at things differently and be thankful we were able to buy the game for the PlayStation. Not,
Right.
yes, it's
Right.
or grateful that they have the entertainment center. Grateful they have a parent that can do those extravagant type things.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they get to grow up with him the way that I could, in a life that I can't provide them. But at the same time, I am grateful that because I have a co-parenting situation, because I can work late on the nights that he's with them, that I get to have more balance with them so that I get to have more quality
Right.
time with them, which is really the only thing that matters to them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
It
it's
doesn't
it's
matter if
showing
you
up.
yeah, it doesn't matter if you have 50-50 if 10% of that time you're at work.
Right.
Right.
Right. So I get to be more focused on them because I was able to say, and it was really hard. Giving up that 50-50 was hard.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. And I think at some weeks it's more like 70-30. But I
Mhm,
had to also realize that in order for me to grow my practice and to be self-sufficient and to be independent, I needed that time. And
mhm.
so he was offering it and it was really hard to accept it. But I check in with my kids frequently, like, "Are you getting enough time with me? Is it, and sometimes they're quick to tell me, like, "We haven't seen you in a little while." And so we switch up the schedule and we're flexible. And so that allows them to get their needs met too. But yeah, I still feel some of that guilt
I
because they
think
only
as
get so much
parents, we
time with
just
the kids.
always feel guilty about something.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that guilt doesn't go away, but it's, pick your battles.
yeah. Now, you recently got married in December. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you made the comment that you had to wait till his kid went to college before you got married. Why was that?
Right. Because so he had two kids. He has two kids. I have two kids. And my husband at the time lived about 40 minutes away. So his youngest daughter, and he was raising her as a single parent, her mother was cross country. So he was raising his two daughters as a single parent, and she loved her school. My kids loved their school. And so there was really no logical way for us to blend those families until his youngest went off to college. So she just went off to UC Berkeley in the fall, and she's loving it. And so she went to college in August, and we got married in December. And when we got married, it was just the kids there. It was just the two of us and the four kids. And it was the first time all four kids were able to be on vacation together. So it was really nice. It was really just kind of the joining of the two families. And his daughter, it was just the two of them for a number of years when I came into the picture. And there was a prior relationship before me that didn't go so well. So his oldest daughter was already off in college when we started dating. So his youngest daughter, I had to really earn her trust. It took me years to earn her trust.
Yeah, you were trying to steal her daddy.
Right. It was just her and her daddy, and I was in the picture, and staying overnights after a little while, and so I kind of respected that she made me earn her trust, but there was one turning point where the two of us kind of. I'll tell the story real quick. She was taking on a leadership role. She was captain of her lacrosse team, and she had to make all these posters for the rest of the team. And I came home to his house, and she was scrambling. She was behind. She was, coloring on all these posters, and I could just see that she was frustrated. And her dad wasn't there, and she had to get off to school. And all I did was say, "Okay, put me to work." And I sat next to her coloring her posters with her. And I know, for me anyway, that was the turning point when this 16-year-old kid realized, okay, all she's here is this person is going to support me.
Right.
And because I helped her do that, and I just pitched in, that I think was the turning point where finally she could breathe a little bit easier. And the two of us now have a great relationship. But she put me through the ringer for a couple of years. I was earning her trust.
Well, and you could have easily responded differently to her. You could have came in and been like, "Well, you should have waited till the last minute to do this," or try to take over the project instead of asking how you could help. And too often, I think, as step parents, we jump to that. I need to help them understand what they did wrong, because as parents, we say no more than we say yes. And so you have a tendency, even when it's not your kid, to want to go, "You shouldn't have waited this late." They don't need to hear that.
Right. And if it were my own kids, I probably would have, messed up the situation by saying something like that because it's my kids.
Right.
But with her, I was able to take a little bit of a step back. I saw she was struggling. There was nothing I could do. So I just started coloring. And I think she probably remembers that moment too. And now we have the relationship where I can text her in college, even if her dad's not on the text string. So it's taken a while for us to get to this point, but I'm really proud of how far we've come.
That's awesome. Well, I'm proud of the relationship you have with your ex, because neither David or I had that relationship with our exes. It was a constant battle.
It's hard. Yeah. It takes two mature people. And if not everybody has that, right. And
there was only one.
Lucky for me, he was able to see the path too. So I'm grateful. Right.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for being a guest on our podcast.
It's so lovely to meet you in person. I love your podcast. I went back and I listened to as many episodes as I could. You guys are doing something really incredible.
Thank you. You are too. Now, where can people find you?
Sure. So on Instagram, I'm at Tamaraesque, so Tamaraesq. My practice is truce resolutions, because calling a truce, I think, is the most important thing.
Yes.
So my practice is truceresolutions.com. And I also created a divorce support app. So if people are struggling with their divorce, and especially on the emotional piece, I created an app to kind of guide them through that process. And that is called Divorce Wave. And it's at divorcewave.com.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we didn't even get to that today.
No, we didn't. We're going to have you back to talk about that.
I will. I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again.
Lovely talking to you.
You too.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And remember that life is good.
And it really is. when you nacho.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nacho Kids Podcast. Find us online at nachokids.com. Until next time, remember, life is good when you nacho.